Trump actually helped Jimmy Kimmel's ratings. Even Clay Travis agreed it was a big mistake, and it turned Jimmy Kimmel into a martyr. Jimmy Kimmel wants ratings to return to him badly. We'll see if those ratings continue. Jimmy Kimmel wants ratings to return to him badly. And he got an unnecessary boost from the chairman of the FCC recently when the chairman of the FCC decided to threaten Jimmy Kimmel with sanctions. Big mistake. Even Clay Travis agreed it was a big mistake by the Trump administration to threaten things like that in regards to free speech. Now, we can talk free speech versus just saying something stupid and being penalized by your employer, which I think is what happened in this case. But nonetheless, the moment Brendan Carr made it on a podcast about, oh, we're going to go after ABC, and if anyone else does this, we're going to go after them too, it turned from a story of, man, Jimmy Kimmel with a really poor attempt at humor, or was it a joke at all? And it turned Jimmy Kimmel into a martyr from that point forward. And the martyrdom pays off, and it pays off with 6.2 million viewers in his return show. And in that return show, even Jimmy Kimmel went out of his way to thank some conservative hosts and conservative media members, including our very own Clay Travis.
Maybe most of all, I want to thank the people who don't support my show and what I believe, but support my right to share those beliefs anyway. People who I never would have imagined, like Ben Shapiro, Clay Travis, Candace Owens, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, even my old pal Ted Cruz.
Look, I find Jimmy Kimmel to be, I think he's a talented guy. I disagree that he doesn't have talent. He is funny. It's a comedy show. I find Jimmy Kimmel's high horse to be appalling. It gets old quickly. It's not, and I know that he said, and he thanked Disney in this, that I want to thank my employer for allowing me to talk about things that are important to me. It's just not the place on a late night comedy talk show. Johnny Carson once said it best, that people tune into me to get an escape from everything going on in their life. It's not on me to tell you my political leaning or to tell you what you need to believe in or any of that stuff. And Jimmy Kimmel, somewhere along the way, has convinced himself that he is more important than he is. I give Jimmy Kimmel credit for a few things in his return address on that show that was so highly rated on ABC. One, he admitted, I'm not that important, this show's not that important, but what is important is the ability for a stupid show like this to be on air and not have government interference. I will raise my hand and say I completely agree with that. Clay Travis agrees with that. Ben Shapiro agrees with that. A lot of conservative voices will agree with that. Because make no mistake about it, if you allow yourself to go down this slippery slope, the moment there's a Democrat in office, you are opening the door in this tit-for-tat political society where we are constantly saying, yeah, but you did this, or yeah, but you did that, or yeah, but I'm going to do this to you in response. A Democratic White House is going to do the same thing to conservative shows. So it's in everyone's best interest to not have government interference when it comes to political satire or things of this nature. So I like that Jimmy Kimmel said that. But now Jimmy Kimmel says that it's not that important, but then goes on to say, but I like that Disney allows me to talk about things important to me. Now, here's where Jimmy Kimmel loses me, though. And this is a place you can go to get a nuanced explanation of everything happening right here on this show and from me on this. Because I'm not going to fall down a party line on anything. I'm going to think about a situation, and I'm going to tell you what I actually think about it. I think Jimmy Kimmel's address at times is very heartfelt. I don't think he's faking it when he's crying about I didn't mean to insult Charlie Kirk or the assassination at all. I believe that. I think it did affect him, that people thought he was doing that, and I think it got to him, and it touched his heart. I think Erica Kirk forgiving the assassin, the murderer, the way she did, when Kimmel starts breaking up and crying about that, I believe him when he says it touched him and that he believes in Jesus' teachings and all of that. I believe Jimmy Kimmel when he says that. Those were touching moments in his address. But here's where Jimmy Kimmel starts to lose me. You can't play this game of we're not that important and this and that and say a lot of good things and then talk about President Trump rooting for you to lose your job. And how we have a president who roots for Americans to lose their job. And not pretend that you didn't do the same thing with Roseanne Barr when she was fired by ABC. Not pretend that you didn't. It wasn't even a joke. You went on and said they did the right thing. So when someone else exercises their First Amendment right, or someone else says something that you believe to be misinformation about a COVID vaccine or anything else, they should be silenced. They should be fired. But when the president, who clearly holds grudges, we know this about President Trump, when he comes after you and says, I want him to be fired, I hope they're gone, that's now a problem for it. He's just like you, Jimmy. He's just like you. It's the reason millions of people voted for Donald Trump, because they see themselves in him. Boy, he gets to say what I would always think and what I want to say. And I like that. He's off the cuff. Now, it gets the president in trouble a lot of times too. But you're no different. Stop pretending that you're different from Donald Trump. You're different on political ideology. But when it comes to, I want to see those that disagree with me hurt in some way, and I'm not talking about physically hurt. I'm talking about I want to see them lose their job. I want to see them suspended. I want to see them in jail. You're the exact same. You celebrated Tucker Carlson off Fox News. You celebrated Roseanne getting fired from her show on ABC. You are exactly the same. You are, in many ways, what you don't like. So let's not pretend it's anything other than that. And also, congrats on the ratings. And a big assist from the FCC on your ratings, successfully making you a martyr. And you got to have 6.6+ million viewers on your first show back. So good for you. Bravo. We'll see if those ratings continue. And we're going to see when we come back about a Senate run for a former football coach. We've seen a lot of people over the years come from the sports world to the political world. Derek Dooley is the latest to attempt to do this. Coach Derek Dooley and hopeful Senator Derek Dooley will join the show next. This is OutKick Hot Mic across the OutKick Network.
Football's finally back. So's the hard-hitting gridiron action on prizepicks. Download prizepicks and use code OutKick and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play $5. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
We're back on OutKick Hot Mic across the OutKick Network. I'm Chad Withrow, your host, live from downtown Nashville, 6th and Peabody Studios, Old Smoky Moonshine, Yeehaw Beer. One of my favorite all-time guests on whatever show I've been a part of, whether it's local sports talk in the South, whether it's this show on OutKick. Always a great guest, always a great conversation, is former coach Derek Dooley. I got to get used to that because not currently in the football world. Derek Dooley running for Senate in his state of Georgia, and possible Senator Derek Dooley, former coach Derek Dooley. Got to get the titles right here, Coach, joining us right now. Thanks so much for the time.
Yeah, Chad, thanks for having me. It sounds like you need a lot better guest list if I'm one of your favorites. That means you're not doing a good job booking the show.
You're always, and we know this in our current political world, it's good to be good for a quote. And you were that as a coach. You always gave thoughtful responses to everything, which that's anybody in the media, that's what they want. They want honesty. They want good responses. They want someone to think through a question and give a good answer. You've always done that. When you're watching our country, right, and you're coming to this decision and you're talking to people about a possible Senate run, what was it that compelled you to say, yeah, now's my time. I want to take a chance at doing this because of what I'm seeing?
Yeah, well, obviously, I'm not your typical candidate, Chad. I mean, this really started for me after COVID, when I started seeing things under the last administration happen in our country that I just thought I'd never see it in my lifetime. And, I always go around and just say, listen, if you're happy with the way D.C. politics is going right now, as far as the results they're getting, how they act, that sort of thing, I'm probably not your guy. So I just think we need some people up there more with some common sense, some people that reflect the values of our state, and somebody that's just not going to accept Washington business as usual in the Senate. And that's what we got in President Trump, for sure. He went up there and delivered a lot of results, probably more so than any president in my lifetime, by not accepting business as usual in Washington. And I just think we need more of those people in D.C. to kind of change the climate of what we're seeing right now.
And, and we've seen this before. I mentioned it. We've got a number of examples of people from the world of athletics getting into politics and how those two at times can be very similar, right? I mean, I think as someone whose coach is an assistant and a head coach at the college level, like a lot of what you're trying to do is political in a lot of ways to get things done, right? How does that experience, Derek, help you in what you hope your next job is going to be?
Well, I think the most important experience you have as a coach are the relationships that you build with people from all walks of life. You sit in kitchens and living rooms from people that it doesn't matter what their race is, it doesn't matter their income level, it doesn't matter their religion, it doesn't matter their politics. You were there to find some common ground, and you were there. They all had these great dreams and they all had these great struggles, but you were able to use football as a vehicle to create opportunity for them, not just to be a better player, but also to be better people, to be better husbands, to be better fathers, to be better citizens. And so I want to bring that same kind of mindset to the U.S. Senate, because I think our greatest resource in this country is our people. And so the more government can go and invest in our people and bring out the potential in them, the same way athletics does in our young people, I think our country will be a lot better off.
Let's talk a little ball here also. When you see
Get to the real stuff.
Yeah, exactly. The real stuff. Yeah, the real productive things like college football. When you see the world of NIL and you see those that are really adapting well to it and having a lot of success as a coach versus those that haven't. I'm thinking about Mike Gundy, who clearly their program went in decline with NIL, and he ends up fired. Dabo Swinney, still a great coach, had a ton of success, not going as well in the NIL era. Your former boss, Nick Saban, gets out in part because of NIL. When you look around and see some of these things, do you think that you could operate well in an NIL world, or is that something that would push you away also from college football if given the opportunity right now?
Well, football changes over the years, and those that aren't adaptable just don't make it. Certainly we went through a major inflection point. And I just think about Nick Saban. I spent 9 years with him, and his model was perfect because what he would do was he would acquire the best talent in a recruiting class, but then he would spend the next 2 years sort of bending the twig, if you will. He made it tough. He broke out all the entitlement any of those kids had and developed a discipline, a work ethic, a call to serve something better than you in these players. And then by the time they were in their third and fourth year, they were amazing players, combining their talent with the values and how they were playing. But it's different now because of the transfer portal. I think the portal is what's changed more so than the NIL. And this ability for players just to jump ship, it does require a different way to manage a team. And you're seeing the coaches that are just doing a phenomenal job with it of not only acquiring the right talent, because look, one of the keys in this is picking the right guys and paying the right guys. Because if you don't do a good job evaluating, it doesn't do you any good, all that money. Everybody says, well, if you have unlimited money, you can get the best players. Well, that's only if you're picking them. But then once you get there, and I think one of the things Kirby's done at Georgia better than anybody, he brings in players that understand that culture and what it takes. Because one of the hardest things to do as a coach is to get this team playing for each other, playing together, playing with a lot of chemistry. And that usually takes time. So the coaches who are able to get in there quickly have this new roster every year and then make them play to their standard. Those are the guys having the most success. And I think Kirby's done it better than anybody.
Yeah, and when you look at Kirby Smart in Georgia hosting Alabama this week, I can't help but think that Coach Saban, while he's never going to bury the coach that took over for him, cannot be happy when he sees some things that go on in that Florida State game where people are going back and looking at the film and this guy didn't run hard to the football. This is going on in pregame warmups. Alabama starts with a struggle in their first game. They've put it together since. We all saw that classic game in Knoxville between Georgia and Tennessee a couple weeks ago. What do you think about both of these programs right now, with one trying to replace a legend and keep it rolling, and then another in Georgia who's being coached by a current legend in Kirby Smart?
Well, let's take one at a time. Let's go backwards first and talk about the Georgia game last week. And I got to tell you, I've never been more proud of a quarterback than I was of Gunnar Stockton watching him that game. And listen, all college football fans should really pull for both of these quarterbacks, Gunnar and Ty. And I'm close to Ty as well. So I have a relationship with Gunnar. I've known him since he was in the 8th grade. But I also coached Ty Simpson the 2 years I was at Alabama. I coached quarterbacks, but the bulk of my job was a lot of the backups, and I spent hours with Ty watching him develop. But both of these guys had plenty of opportunities to go make more money, to leave because they didn't get the starting job right away, but they stuck with it because their dream for Ty was to be the starting quarterback at Alabama, for Gunnar to be the starting quarterback at Georgia. And it's really just brings out what you love about college football because they've earned it the hard way. Now, the reason I was so proud of Gunnar is because, of course, he was getting criticized from his play against Austin Peay. And he went up in probably the toughest environment for a quarterback to have his first start in the SEC in Knoxville, Tennessee, with a red-hot team whose offense was lighting it up. And it was just amazing how consistently well he played. And even more importantly, I look at things like they didn't have one pre-snap penalty. They didn't have an offsides or a delay a game, anything like that, that usually happens in those environments. And that just comes from having a real calm and assertive quarterback as your leader. And so kudos to him. Of course, his challenge now is, can he keep it up? And can he stack another game on top of it? Because every week you're held to a high standard. As far as Ty's concerned, Ty's looking really for his first Tennessee moment that Gunnar had. He had an opportunity to go on the road against FSU. They didn't play as well. So this is an opportunity for them to go out and prove that they're still part of the elite. I think, obviously, it's tough to go follow the shoes of Nick Saban. I don't think anybody expected any coach to walk in and uphold that kind of standard. But it's not really impossible. You know, everybody says, well, it's impossible to win after a guy like Nick. But you think about, I just think of a couple of references. First of all, when we left LSU and Les Miles took over, he kind of continued what Nick started there. And I think the important thing was Les went in and the LSU program probably said, here's how we do it. All right, don't mess this up. And just keep the thing going. You go coach the players and recruit, and we got all this other support going as it is. And I also think about Ohio State. I mean, when you talk about these kind of programs, Alabama, Ohio State, Jim Tressel left, Urban Meyer came in. After Urban left, Ryan Day came in. Every one of those coaches have won over 80% of their games. And so at these kind of programs, you might not make it to Nick Saban level, but it doesn't mean you can't still be one of the top 5-10 team programs in the country. And that's what the Alabama fans expect.
You know, I'm watching the Lane Kiffin documentary last night, and I wish they would have had an addendum to the documentary to show what you stepped into in Knoxville, because it does a good job documenting, like the students cursing at Kiffin, throwing rocks and everything. And I think Chris Lowe was a part of it and said, that was the most tumultuous 18 months in Tennessee football history. And then I thought, you know, I'm talking to Derek Dooley tomorrow, and you stepped into that. Like, that was the situation you walked into where Tennessee fans were upset they had to fire a legend in Philip Fulmer because things went south. Then they're ecstatic about Lane Kiffin, has a pretty good first year, racks up a bunch of NCAA violations along the way, leaves in the dead of night, and then they're, you know, despondent again, and you're there at a press conference coming to Knoxville. How tough was that? And what just the beginning of when you arrived, because you're attempting to do this now where you're going to replace someone else and step in and implement what you want to do. How tough was that situation in Knoxville when you arrived?
Well, of course, at that time, I was a lot younger and a lot more confident. As I look back, the real reason I got that job, because nobody else wanted the damn thing, given the state it was in. But I was young and dumb enough to think that I could go in and flip it around in a year or two. And it was certainly a challenge. And I think but the biggest challenge, of course, was the state of the roster. It had just going through two coaches. It really took a toll on it. And we were close. Listen, we were close that third year, but we didn't get it done. And, it's a results business. And when you don't deliver the result.
I think we froze up with Derek Dooley there, so we'll try to.
It does to you. It humbles you. You allow yourself to look in the mirror and think about things you could have done differently, and you grew. And I became a better coach out of it. And in a lot of ways, I became a better man and a husband and a dad. I can assure you, when you get knocked on your tail publicly, it humbles you pretty quickly. And when you dust your britches off and get going forward, you're a lot better off than where you were when you got there.
Yeah, and I'm also watching this last night, Derek, and I'm seeing the humbling factor of working for a guy like Nick Saban that is that demanding. And in the documentary, it talks about how Lane Kiffin had a problem with that because under Pete Carroll, it was more of a democracy. It was not a dictatorship. And he had feedback for Coach Saban. And Kirby Smart's on camera saying, yeah, no one was used to seeing that, where he would fire back, and then that would lead to even worse things. That experience working for Nick Saban has to be a great teacher, right, in terms of how to operate within that system.
Well, I try to tell every coach, because they all came in, and of course I was with him for a long time in the early years. A lot of these Bama coaches, they didn't know the Nick Saban back when he was 40 years old and hadn't won anything, and he was trying to prove it. They thought he was hard at Bama. We had a different experience at LSU, but I used to tell the coaches that came in and said, listen, there's two things that are going to happen. He's going to make you a better coach, and we're going to win. And what more could you want from a coach than that? Now, how he did that, it was certainly not an easy work environment, and it was very challenging. And I think people would take a lot of things personally that were said or done, and they just didn't want to be a part of that. But I thrived in it. I can tell you this. My very first interview with Nick Saban was back in 2000. And I'm young. I didn't know anything about football. I didn't know anything about anything. And I actually didn't even know who Nick Saban was. He was at Michigan State. He just got this job. And I came in, and we're sitting there for hours. And I knew right away, this guy's pretty serious. And he asked me, he says, well, what do you know about special teams? And I said, well, Coach, I coached the punt team. I was at SMU at that time. You want me to get up on the board and show you what we do? And he said, I don't give a crap what you do. You're going to do what I tell you to do.
Probably didn't use the word crap, too. So I just learned
pretty quickly. I know the rules now, okay? So once you know the rules, I didn't have a problem. Again, because every time he pushed at me or corrected me or however you want to say it, I would go back in my office and think about it. And I'd say, you know what? He's right. He's right. I could have done that better. And I learned from it and moved on.
Outstanding. Derek, before we let you go, Alabama, Georgia, under the lights, Sanford Stadium, Saturday night. Do you have a prediction about how this game's going to go on Saturday?
Well, listen, now that I'm out of coaching, I'm back to bleeding red and black. I grew up in Athens. I grew up on the sidelines. I love Georgia. And it was some of the hardest parts for me was having to leave and go coach in different places. But now that I'm back, I'm back to my form. And of course, I got a lot of ties with the guys on the staff that I'd coached with. I'm pulling for Gunner Stockton hard. And so I'm pulling for the Dawgs. But I do have a little soft spot in my heart for Ty because we have a relationship well. So I hope Ty plays well, but I expect the Dawgs to take care of business and get over the hump. If you think about this, Chad, Kirby has been so dominant.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. I think it's 32-5 against his rivals. Florida, Auburn, Georgia Tech, Tennessee. That is insane. The problem is 1-6 against Bama. And so this is a great opportunity for the Dawgs to kind of put away that whole narrative about Alabama, and I expect them to do it.
It's going to be a hell of a night down in Athens. I can't wait to watch it. Always a good time when we have you on, Derek. Really appreciate it. Best of luck with the campaign.
Hey, I appreciate it. DooleyForGeorgia.com, Chad.
DooleyForGeorgia.com. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Derek
Bye-bye.
Dooley, always great, always good conversationalist, and hats off to him. A lot of people would not want to get into politics right now, given the current state of things, and he's all in running for senator in Georgia. So appreciate the time with him. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll get a little bit more into the Lane Kiffin documentary and Mrs. Bill Belichick. Not yet. Maybe Bill Belichick is Mr. Jordan Hudson. I'll discuss when we come back. This is Hot Mic across the OutKick Network.
Football's finally back. So's the hard-hitting gridiron action on prizepicks. Download prizepicks and use code OutKick and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play $5. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
We're back. OutKick Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow from our downtown studios, 6th and Peabody, Old Smoky Moonshine Yeehaw Beer. So I watched the Lane Kiffin documentary on ESPN last night. Ryan McGee, I thought, did a good job with the interview portion of it. My big takeaway, though, is not that big of a takeaway. It was okay, and I would say just okay. Layla Kiffin's not interviewed for it. A lot of other people I'd like to see interviewed were not a part of it. Nick Saban had a very small part in it, which I'd like to see more of him. It doesn't give anyone who knows the Lane Kiffin story any new information. And it also doesn't, there's no big revelation in it. You know, it's the mantra of the whole thing is basically, hey, Kiffin was kind of a lunatic as a young guy, and he pissed a lot of people off. And now, while he still pisses people off with his personality and with needling people, he's a changed man, and he's doing hot yoga 3 times a day, and he's sober, and he's co-parenting with his ex-wife. They do make the distinction, though they're not married. It was all right. You know, as the years have gone on since he left Tennessee, my perception of Lane Kiffin has changed a lot over the years. He's done a hell of a job at Ole Miss. He's a hell of an offensive coach, or Nick Saban wouldn't have hired him. They wouldn't have had him for 3 years as the offensive coordinator if he wasn't. Really good at coaching offenses, but mishandled a lot of things early in his career. Again, this is neither a recommendation nor me slamming the project. I thought it was okay. There was no big takeaway from me from it. If you know the Lane Kiffin story, you're not going to be surprised by anything, but I thought it was pretty well done and produced. Something that's not well done is Bill Belichick's handling of his girlfriend, who is way younger than him and Jordan Hudson. We've got her on the sideline at UCF, so she's out in full force as they go on the road to Orlando in some knee-high boots, and I think that's a skirt, maybe some short, maybe it's a skort, maybe some short jean shorts, not quite sure. But she's in this outfit with her, I think the clear bag policy is in effect, and, you know, Bill Belichick looks like they're gazing in each other's eyes. It, again, is another example of a man who made his living and won championships because of Tom Brady, first and foremost. But second, because he had a mantra of professionalism, of doing your job, and eliminating distractions. And North Carolina thought they were hiring that guy, and instead they got Bill Belichick, the guy who's got a girlfriend in her mid-20s that is nothing but a distraction. I would really want a rebate if I were North Carolina, because you're not getting the Bill Belichick that you thought you were getting. And I'd be pissed off if I was a North Carolina fan. I would certainly be angry if I'm Bubba Cunningham in North Carolina. And this season is not going to be good. It is year one. Got to give him a little bit more time than that. But I don't see this thing ending well with Bill Belichick and North Carolina. Maybe the true love story will be Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson. That is a success story. We'll have to wait and see. One big success story was our Ultimate Fan Sweepstakes, where we gave away a trip, the Ultimate Gameday Experience, we gave away a trip to someone to go to Georgia and Alabama this weekend. The winner of the Ultimate Gameday Experience will join me next. This is Hot Mic across the OutKick Network.
Football's finally back. So's the hard-hitting gridiron action on prizepicks. Download prizepicks and use code OutKick and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play $5. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Winning is what we do here on the show. It's what we strive for. It's what we do. And winning is exactly what Ken and Stacy Radcliff did in our ultimate game day experience. And they're on with us right now. First off, guys, congratulations on winning this sweepstakes. You're going to love it in Athens, Georgia. How did you hear about the sweepstakes?
We saw the commercial on Fox TV.
Nice. I love that. I see that we got a Yankees fan with us here with Ken. So have you been to Athens, Georgia before? Have you been to a Georgia Bulldogs football game?
No,
Looking
never.
forward.
You are in for an absolute treat. One of the best college towns in America. And I know that you guys have a relationship with an MTSU football player. What can you tell us about that relationship? And in fact, the quarterback at MTSU, is that right?
Yes, my first cousin's son is the starting quarterback he's a fifth-year player now, so he's, I think, 3 years starting now. So we're hoping he has a future with that. But
yeah, absolutely, very cool. And would you consider yourselves college football fans based on that relationship, or are you now growing as a college football fan?
I've been watching more since that happened,
And friends have gotten us into watching more games.
Nice. Well, guys, I think you're going to be into watching more games this weekend. I know you're going to meet Clay Travis. My advice to you when you meet Clay, compliment his hair. He loves that. Any compliment about Clay's hair. You don't have to talk politics with him. You don't have to talk about sports. You can if you want. He'll talk your ear off. But if you compliment his hair, you'll be on his good side.
All right.
Okay.
Remember that.
Yep. Hey, guys, enjoy the trip down south. Enjoy Athens. You're going to love the experience. It's going to be a rocking atmosphere on Saturday night. And congratulations on winning the OutKick Ultimate Game Day Experience.
Thank you so much.
There you go. Ken and Stacy Radcliff, congratulations to them. They're going to have a hell of a time in Athens, Georgia. And you can have a hell of a time by reading the OutKick newsletter. Make sure you sign up, outkick.com/newsletter. Congratulations, newsletters, I should say. Congratulations to them on winning this getaway. They're going to have a great time. Should be a great atmosphere. I know it's going to be a great show tomorrow as we close out the week. I will have your top 10 college football games of the weekend, and it's a big one. We're back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central Time, right here on OutKick Hot Mic.